Welcome on into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and it is time for the Week 10 running back rankings. It's a good week in running back land. I think there's a lot of good options, and for the opposite reason of the wide receiver position, there will be some tough choices that will have to be made for some rosters. Other rosters will just be happy that their running backs are in a good situation this week to do well. And of course, the Christian McCaffrey return is looming. I will at the end show you who I am not ranking. It should be a little bit obvious, but projections, everything would change a little bit if some of the players that I'm not ranking or am ranking were to not play or play in this game. Hopefully that made sense. I think you get the main idea. So as you can see, we're going to go through my rankings in the order that I put them is the rankings. You can also see I do have projections available to you, and there's a lower end, a higher end to those projections, and this little black bar in between is just a nice visual to kind of compare and contrast amongst one another in this chart. However, if this is all visually a lot for you and you're really just looking to purely see who do I have ranked above one another, you don't want too much more detail, you can just click on the bottom of the tab up on the website, www.dffforge.com, where all of these positions are up, and you can see them by now. They should be available to you. There are links in the description is what I wanted to say. And here at the bottom of the tab, you click on the running back rankings or wide receiver rankings, whatever position, and you just get a nice little, in the order of my rankings, there you go. So let's get on to this first tier of running back rankings, the must-start guys. I'm really not questioning this too much. Hopefully your roster is not so stacked that you have to make any cuts decisions within here. But even against most wide receivers, for flex opinions, if you got three of these guys, I would generally state to probably go with the running back, especially this year. So my first tier of running backs begins with Saquon Barkley, followed by Derrick Henry, Bijan Robinson, Kyren Williams, Alvin Kamara, Devon Achane. Yes, he's back in this conversation again. Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey, and Breece Hall. If Christian's playing, and if we don't get any kind of news about how limited he's going to be or whatnot, it's going to be pretty hard for me to keep him out of my lineups at a certain point. Right now, I'm just going into this thinking that he is going to play, thinking that he's had enough time to heal, that he's going to be, largely utilized. This is about where I would put him. I don't want to be sitting Christian McCaffrey and have him go off. That is for sure. Risk adverseness can change from one person to the next, though. Feel free to, if you just don't feel comfortable with the situation, if you have Breece Hall, for instance, just go with it. That's fine. I think Breece Hall is a must start as well. Other than that, just wanted to mention here, Jahmyr Gibbs going up against the Houston Texans. They allow the third least receptions to running backs, so that's going to lower the ceiling for Jahmyr Gibbs in this game. And they allow about only 83 yards per game. That's a bottom 10 number. So that lowers the floor as well for Jahmyr Gibbs. So not the best matchup against Houston. There are some concerns for me here, but also it's the Detroit running game. They pretty much get it going up against anybody and everybody. That's going to bring us on to our second tier of running backs, which begins at RB13 with James Cook, followed by James Conner, Kareem Hunt, Tyrone Tracy, DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery, and J.K. Dobbins. All still very strong starts, but you will see I have J.K. Dobbins highlighted in red. Usually that's not a good sign. Of course, for most of my rankings, it is a good sign, red, and then blue is poor. But in this instance, when we're highlighting the player himself, that is a fade for me, J.K. Dobbins, this week. And every week, I choose a couple of fades and a couple of loves for my running backs. It's no different than a start-sit type of column, except I just call them fades and loves. And last week, how did I do? Well, for my loves, I chose Brian Robinson Jr., who did not participate, did not play, so that one gets tossed aside. I had a couple of those last week. And Devin Singletary, who finished as a running back 51. Of course, I wasn't expecting an RB10 type of day from Singletary, but I did think that the matchup and everything provided an opportunity for Devin Singletary to potentially have a better day than we were anticipating going in, an emergency kind of play type of running back. I thought he was an option. At RB51, he didn't quite live up to those hopes, so that did not work out. But for my fades, nailed them both here. Breece Hall, Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs, I mean, it sure didn't look like I was going to nail that. He was running incredibly efficiently for the first half against Detroit. A really good run defense, and that was, the concern. But then they didn't use him for the entire second half. There are game factors that contributed to that, but, I mean, man, he ran really well. And Breece Hall, RB28, just another, more poor week for him. But I'm a little more optimistic about him this week going up against Arizona. So fire up your Breece Halls. I think I've faded him 2 weeks in a row with success, so you're probably a little bit down on that. But I get him back in there. In terms of James Conner and Kareem Hunt, just want to kind of compare and contrast these two for a start-sit type of question here. And I thought that Conner going up against the New York Jets provides you with a floor that should be perfectly fine, but the ceiling is questionable due to their limiting of the receiving upside of efficiency numbers, but James Conner should run plenty against the New York Jets, and there should be enough efficiency there that I'm not too afraid of the floor, just like last week for James Conner. So looking for him to have another good week, maybe not a smash week. Kareem Hunt, on the other hand, I don't think that the floor is as safe against the Denver Broncos. They're much more efficient against the ground game. Kareem Hunt has come through, but it hasn't been the prettiest production always, and he's gotten touchdowns, I think, in every single game, so that's gone a whole lot of the ways towards, helping him to project better, as you can see here, etc. But the ceiling, I do think, is quite high because something that they have not utilized Kareem Hunt in is the passing game so far, which has made him why he's should be a volatile option. However, he's just kind of come through with the touchdown upside no matter what in the matchup. This week, the yards and everything might be a little bit tough, but he might be able to offset that with the Denver passing, through the passing game against Denver. They allow running backs to pass a lot against them, and that's why I do think that there's a nice ceiling here. You could add that element to a decent ground game and a touchdown. Boom. Now we're looking at something that could be much bigger. Tyrone, Tracy, Swift, David Montgomery, a little bit lower on David Montgomery once again, just like last week. I mean, Houston is actually a pretty tough opponent on the ground, and so that's not the best for David Montgomery there. But J.K. Dobbins, I am even a little bit more concerned about, despite him projecting better against Tennessee. And I am fading J.K. Dobbins because of the Tennessee defense. It is good all around, really, which helps to prevent touchdowns, which is what J.K. Dobbins is going to need. And lucky for him, where Tennessee does tend to allow the touchdowns has typically been to running backs on the ground. But other than that, they've been very tough. They only allow 3.8 yards per carry to the running back position. That's a bottom 5 number, so tough to be efficient against them. And they allow the 8th least receptions to running backs per game, so there's not really that receiving upside to offset maybe some poor efficiency on the ground. And J.K. Dobbins doesn't get used in the passing game really anyways. So I'm not too optimistic about the ceiling for J.K. Dobbins, and I think he really is in one of these games where he absolutely needs a touchdown to really come through for you in fantasy. I don't think he's going to have a over 100-yard game against Tennessee, we'll say like that. That's going to bring us on to this next tier. We're going to start to get into a love of mine here at running back 21. My running back 20, however, is Tony Pollard, followed by Najee Harris, Chuba Hubbard, Ramondre Stevenson, and Chase Brown. By and large here, we are getting into some question marks, especially some tougher matchups continue here. Tony Pollard, he's been very good on the season. Los Angeles Chargers. It is a very, very tough matchup. One of the best defenses in the league. Najee Harris does get a love from me. It doesn't quite, the projection's not bad. I might have to move him up a little bit here. We'll see. Once again, Tony Pollard has been very good on this season. Washington, not the best matchup in the world, but Washington does allow the 5th most rushing yards to running backs and the most yards per rush at 5.2 yards per rush specifically to the running back position. So those are the reasons that I feel comfortable with Najee Harris. They do allow the least receptions to running backs. Not really, once again, here, something that they utilize Najee Harris in a lot. He's kind of their plotting back, and he gets a lot of usage like that. And so, once again, in a matchup where I expect him to have a decent amount of efficiency, I love the floor. It's very much intact for him. ceiling, just like always with this Pittsburgh offense, with him, without his some extra passing upside, it's not the best. But I do feel comfortable with the floor on him. And then Chase Brown is another guy I just wanted to mention here going up against Baltimore. It's a really, really tough defense. And so I know we're coming off of a week where, he just had his blow-up game, all the opportunity in the world ahead of him. It is a divisional matchup, so who knows, anything can really happen in this game. I'm just throwing a little bit of caution into the wind here around Chase Brown, and that's why he's a fade for me. The floor is horrible against Baltimore. They're one of the best run defenses in the league. On the bright side, though, against Baltimore here, and why maybe you might want to ignore this if you want to buy into this narrative, the Baltimore Ravens teams have passed against the Baltimore Ravens at one of the highest rates to the running back position specifically, against compared to any other team, and that's an area where Chase Brown's explosiveness can really come into play. So this is definitely the type of game where, hey, maybe Chase Brown gets a 36-yard dump-off pass, for a touchdown. That could be in play. So I'm fading Chase Brown because I do think that the floor is very, very low against Baltimore, but also there is an opportunity here. And I'm not going to get too crazy in who I'm starting over him. The first tier right behind him is going to be Rico Dowdle, Rachaad White, Austin Ekeler, my running backs 25 through 27. And Rachaad White, and actually, let's just go on to this next tier because we're going to talk about Rachaad White and Bucky Irving together. My running backs 28 through 30 are Bucky Irving, Javonte Williams, and then Raheem Mostert, my second love of the week. Chase Brown was my second fade of the week, so we're done with the fades. A little bit about Rachaad White, Bucky Irving. Yet again, this week, Tampa Bay running backs are running up against a bit of a buzzsaw in the San Francisco rushing defense. Not unlike what I just talked about with Baltimore, there is a way that you can attack the San Francisco defense from a running back perspective with some success, and that is through the air. And that leads me, yet again this week, to rank Rachaad White higher than Bucky Irving, as I have been doing in these types of matchups for, I believe this would be the third week in a row that has been kind of the justification of the order that I have these two ranked. They allow the fifth fewest yards per game, San Francisco, in total to the running back position. So, concerns for Bucky Irving there. His floor, not so great. Efficiency could be tough for him. And then Rachaad White, we rely on that passing game a little bit more, so there's a little bit of silver lining for Rachaad White for me. But I'm not overly optimistic regardless. It's not like this is a smash, matchup type of situation for Rachaad White or anything. And then Raheem Mostert's going up against the Los Angeles Rams, my second love of the week. And for Raheem Mostert, this is a bit of a gut call. I don't love to go with gut calls for my loves or my fades, but also that's part of it. That's part of what these are. The Rams, as a defense, a run defense, are an average rushing defense that teams have run against at a very high rate because they could up until now, because the Rams did not really have an offense for most of the season, so I do expect these things to change. I don't expect teams to be able to run, at an extremely high rate against this defense anymore, which could work out in a few different ways in terms of efficiency against this Los Angeles Rams defense. But the silver lining to me, for the most part, in this matchup for Raheem Mostert, opposite of that, is that the Miami passing game could get going against this Los Angeles Rams passing defense. That we know is not very good. And in this matchup is something that Miami will look to take advantage of and maybe get their receivers going a little bit more, as it has been a little lackluster since Tua came back. And that could provide several scoring opportunities for a run offense that I thought showed signs of finding itself last week. Raheem Mostert looked pretty good, fairly efficient, so let's look to build on that in this game, especially once we get down into the red zone. That's still an area where they like to use Raheem Mostert on the ground in, so I'm optimistic about the outcome this week for Raheem Mostert if you're in a pinch situation. And then that's going to get us into the beyond pinch situations here for the end of this little kind of tier here. Travis Etienne, Tyler Algier, Jordan Mason are all these running backs that are in some sort of split. Travis Etienne might be in the least of splits. It's tough to exactly know what that running situation is supposed to look like there in terms of carries. I don't know if injuries have held him back in recent weeks or if what. It's a run game that has not gotten going up against Minnesota. It's a really, really tough rushing matchup. I'm just not too optimistic about it. But after that, we do have some optimism. Tyler Algier going up against New Orleans, a defense that's really sucked. Could run against them a lot. Could get Algier involved as the game goes along and provide him with a few opportunities, maybe even in the red zone. And then Jordan Mason, we don't really know what the usage will be for Christian McCaffrey. And it's a decent game here for him. What's the usage going to be? It's tough to predict. But at a certain point, I do think there's an opportunity that he could get a decent amount of usage. So currently that's where I have him ranked. We'll listen to the news reports for the rest of the week. And then I also am currently not ranking Brian Robinson, so that obviously helps the Austin Eckler ranking, and Tyjae Spears I am not ranking. I don't know that affects the Tony Pollard ranking. Isaac Guerrero I just have here in case Christian McCaffrey is a no-go this week. And then Jordan Mason, what if he's a no-go? So I did project him just in case. I got that all kind of ready and prepared to go. So there you go. That is it. Not too much here to be too concerned about. It's a good running back week, especially with all the buys going on. A couple of running backs being missed this week. It still stands up. So thank you very, very much, everybody. I appreciate you guys and look forward to the quarterbacks and tight ends video coming out tomorrow morning and then tomorrow evening. Thursday, I go live 7 p.m. Eastern. Nope, Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Saturday, I go live at 7 for all your start-sit questions in both those cases. And on Sunday mornings, when I can, but definitely 2 hours prior to kickoff at the latest, I will be live as well. I've been pushing that up, so I would say 2.5 hours prior to kickoff, maybe even 3, I will be here Sunday morning. So I hope to see you at any of those periods of time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.